How long have you been practicing Krishna consciousness now?
I've been attending Bhakti Bookshop from last 4 months.
Okay, you're a veteran already. Okay. Well, one of the main subject matters in Bhagavad Gita is the modes of nature. In fact, I haven't done the count, but some devotees have. There's more verses on this topic than any other topic in Bhagavad Gita, the modes of nature. It's very important subject matter. And it's not only found in chapter 14, there are several other references which this presentation will cover. But the principal place is chapter 14. In fact, that's the title of the chapter. The three modes of material nature. So just to put the subject matter in context, music is not playing for some reason.
The three modes of material nature. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 14.
I think it's only playing off of this. What are you going to do? Okay, he's going to do something. While he's doing something, we'll pay attention to where this fits into Bhagavad Gita is. There are 5 subject matters. If you've read the introduction, this slide after this first one covers those 5. And this is one of the 5. It's Prakriti. But Prakriti, material nature, is governed by 3 modes. The 3 modes of material nature.
The 3 modes of material nature. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 14.
Nice going. So, I think a good place to begin is where chapter 14 fits in the whole flow of the Bhagavad Gita. Chapter 13 is Sankhya, an expanded version of Sankhya. Sankhya means analysis of matter and spirit, so Kapila, the form of the Lord that appeared in Satya Yoga. He taught extensively this Sankhya, and Sankhya is in chapter 2 of Bhagavad Gita. Wow. Sounds like bumblebees. Okay. So chapter 13, that Sankhya section, in simple language is describing how the living entity, the spiritual entity, is involved with matter. There's 3 divisions of 2 sets of questions. Prakriti and Purusha, Kshetra and Kshetragya, Jnanam and Gyayam. Matter and spirit, matter and spirit, matter and spirit. And the soul is the spirit, and we're implicated in matter. Then chapter 14, in very simple terms, is explaining how it happens, how does it come about that the living entity gets involved with matter, and then how matter conditions the living entity in different ways to forget the living entity's identity according to the modes of material nature. Another section is describing what happens after this life depending upon the mode of nature that you're involved in, where's the destination of the soul. And then finally, the method of becoming free from involvement with the modes of nature. And that method is devotional service. That's how the chapter ends. And then chapter 15 follows 14, describes the detachment that results from devotional service. This whole reference of the banyan tree, with this banyan tree with the roots up and the branches down. The reflection of this world is a reflection of the spiritual world. It's a whole other description, a whole other topic. Chapter 15, Bhagavad Gita. So chapter 13, the soul, the way in which the soul becomes involved in matter. So especially, I'm going to open Bhagavad Gita to chapter 13, text 22. It's Purukshat Prakriti Stohi Bhunkte Prakriti Jan Gunan Karanam Gunasangosya Sadasad Yoni Janmasu. That's the Sanskrit translation. The living entity in material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. 1322. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus he meets with good and evil among various species. So, living entity, there's two, the nature of the two is very different. Material nature, Prakriti, and the living entity. That's chapter 2, Bhagavad Gita, the distinction between the two, how they're their nature. He enjoys sad, asad, good and evil, good fortune, ill fortune. The different circumstances of life come our way, not just by karma, but also which mode of nature that we associate with. There's a similar, not the same, but similar verse or message in 3rd chapter Bhagavad Gita. When Arjuna wants to know, chapter 3, what is it that impels someone to act? Sometimes even against your will. You want to do something and you end up doing something else. Why is that? And the answer that Krishna gives is the influence of the modes of nature. Specifically, it's the mode of passion, which then transforms into wrath. Kameshu, Krodeshu, Rajo Guna, Sam Udbhava. So the soul's association with the modes of nature brings one to the position where you're moved, even against your will. Will it or don't will it. Some things happen. And this is the influence of the modes of nature. So now chapter 14, that's our topic. How these modes of material nature begin, how they condition the diversity of the three, the competition between one mode and the other mode, and sometimes one is prevalent and the other are recessive and so forth. The outcome during this life, after this lifetime, from association with the modes of nature, and how to become free from the modes of nature. It's a very important verse at the very end. We'll see when we get there. Okay.
The subject matter of Bhagavad Gita contains 5 main topics. They are God, Ishvara,
Can you turn the lights up?
Jiva, material nature, Prakriti, time, Kala, and fruitive activity, Karma.
So there's the 5. If you read the introduction, you'll find these 5 listed. It comes directly from the commentary of Baladev Vidyabhusan. If you read carefully, this Bhagavad Gita is dedicated to Baladev Vidyabhusan because that's the principal commentary that Prabhupada followed. And you'll find it again and again, several places in the introduction. So we're going to be focusing on the one in the lower right. That little graphic indicates material nature and specifically the
chapter presents knowledge about material nature, how the living entity becomes conditioned by
how we come in contact with material nature to begin with, the process of creation.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead, sir, knowing which all the sages have attained the Supreme.
Supreme perfection.
Supreme perfection.
Ah.
By becoming born at the time of creation, or disturbed at the time of dissolution.
Merit of the knowledge has been proclaimed, and now this is the first topic. How it happens. We first come in contact with material nature.
The total material substance, or Brahman, is the source of birth. And it is that Brahman that I impregnate, making possible the births of all living, and that I am the seed-giving father. Material nature consists of 3 modes. He becomes conditioned by these modes.
Impregnated by the seed-giving Father, and then the varieties of life come from contact with material nature, the variety being determined by the modes of nature. That's what we heard just now. And now, how the modes of nature are conditioning and their particular characteristics of each of the modes.
The mode of goodness, being purer than the others, is illuminating, and it frees one from all sinful reactions. Those situated in that mode become conditioned by a sense of happiness and knowledge. The mode of passion is born of unlimited desires and longings. And because of this, the embodied living entity is bound to material, fruitive actions. O son of Bharata, know that the mode of darkness, born of ignorance, is the delusion of all embodied living entities. The results of this mode are madness, indolence, and sleep, which bind the conditioned soul. The mode of goodness conditions one to happiness, passion conditions one to fruitive action, and ignorance, covering one's knowledge, binds one to madness. Sometimes the mode of goodness becomes prominent, defeating the modes of passion and ignorance. Sometimes the mode of passion defeats goodness and ignorance. And at other times, ignorance defeats goodness and passion. In this way, there is always competition for supremacy.
Pretty good graphics, huh? So we've heard the living entity comes in contact with material nature, Prakriti, by the seed-giving Father's arrangement, and then in contact with material nature, the modes begin to condition the living entity in different ways, as we've just heard. Goodness, passion, and ignorance in this way, each one. And they're competing for supremacy, so one times one mode is prominent, another mode is prominent.
Manifestation of the three modes and how to recognize the predominant mode.
The music stopped. I don't know why. I think I have to go. Huh?
Split.
No, that's right here. It's right there, but the music stopped. Some glitch. And I don't know how to get it to start again other than going way back to the beginning.
The manifestations
there we
of
go.
the
Look
mode
at
of goodness
there.
can be
Music.
experienced when all the gates of the body are illuminated by knowledge.
In the mode of goodness, one can see things in the right position, one can hear things in the right position, and one can taste things in the right position. One becomes cleansed inside and outside.
So that's a nice mode. There's more. From Srimad Bhagavatam, in Krishna's instructions to Uddhava, he describes further.
Srimad Bhagavatam further enumerates the qualities of the mode of goodness. Mind and sense control, sticking to one's prescribed duties, tolerance, mercy, truthfulness, satisfaction in any condition, faith in the spiritual master, being embarrassed at improper action, simplicity and humbleness.
Sounds like a nice person to have as a friend, right? Or to be like so you can be a good friend of others. Unfortunately, that's not the only mode.
When there is an increase in the mode of passion, the symptom great attachment, fruit of activity, intense endeavor, and uncontrollable desire and hankering develop.
Qualities of the mode of passion, material desire, great endeavor, audacity, false pride, self-gratification, dissatisfaction even in gain, considering oneself better than others.
I know some people that this describes very well. One very prominent person, I won't mention his name.
Rash feelings of fun, comments that lead to self-praise, tendency to ridicule others, advertising one's own thoughts, justifying one's actions by one's faith.
And the modes compete for supremacy, and sometimes the mode of ignorance predominates.
When there is an increase in the mode of ignorance, darkness, inertia, madness, and illusion are manifested.
Qualities of the mode of ignorance: intolerant anger, stinginess, fear and violent hatred, living as a parasite, speaking without scriptural authority.
That's Uddhava Gita. Here's another from that same section.
Quarrel and hypocrisy, chronic fatigue, depression, sleeping too much, false expectation, and laziness.
So the modes condition the living entity. Remember, 13 is Sankhya. Now, when the two mix, here's what happens from chapter 14. And then during this lifetime, what you feel and what you do, they're conditioned, and then it carries on after this lifetime.
Result of actions within the free world and destination after death.
When one dies in the mode of goodness, he attains to the pure higher planets of the great sages. When one dies in the mode of passion, he takes birth among those engaged in fruitive activities. And when one dies in the mode of ignorance, he takes birth in the animal kingdom. The result of pious action is pure and is said to be in the mode of goodness.
These are the results.
But action done in the mode of passion results in misery. And action performed in the mode of ignorance results in foolishness. From the mode of goodness, real knowledge develops. From the mode of passion, greed develops. And from the mode of ignorance develop foolishness, madness, and illusion. Those situated in the mode of goodness gradually go upward to the higher planets. Those in the mode of passion live on the earthly planets, and those in the abominable mode of ignorance go down to the hellish worlds.
So actions and then the results of those actions. And we're going to hear something further. Chapters 17 and 18 of Bhagavad Gita speak on this topic also.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, according to the modes of nature acquired by the embodied soul, one's faith can be of three kinds, in goodness, in passion, or in ignorance. Even the food each person prefers is of three kinds, according to the three modes of material nature. The same is true of sacrifices, austerities, and charity. Now, here are the distinctions between them.
The modes of nature affect all these things. The first message was faith, and now we're seeing sacrifice, austerities, and charity. So, Jai Radhe has very conveniently made it possible so we can select the menu. Which one do you want to start with first? Food. Okay, we'll go to food.
Foods dear to those in the mode of goodness increase the duration of life, purify one's existence, and give strength, health, happiness, and satisfaction. Such foods are juicy, fatty, wholesome, and pleasing to the heart. Foods that are too bitter, too sour, salty, hot, pungent, dry, and burning are dear to those in the mode of passion. Such foods cause distress, misery, and disease. Food prepared more than 3 hours before being eaten, food that is tasteless, decomposed, and putrid, and food consisting of remnants and untouchable things is dear to those in the mode of darkness.
Okay, enough of that. Next one? Faith. Okay.
According to one's existence under the various modes of nature, one evolves a particular kind of faith. Men in the mode of goodness worship the demigods. Those in the mode of passion worship the demons. And those in the mode of ignorance worship ghosts and spirits.
And then according to the worship, one has a destination.
Men in the mode of goodness
Let's find out about happiness, huh?
O best of the Bharatas, now please hear from me about the three kinds of happiness by which the conditioned soul enjoys, and by which he sometimes comes to the end of all distress. That which in the beginning may be just like poison, but at the end is just like nectar, and which awakens one to self-realization, is said to be happiness in the mode of goodness. That happiness which is derived from contact of the senses with their objects, and which appears like nectar at first, but poison at the end, is said to be of the nature of passion. And that happiness which is blind to self-realization, which is delusion from beginning to end, and which arises from sleep, laziness, and illusion, is said to be of the nature of ignorance.
I don't think we'll do all of these, but you get the idea. We'll go to charity.
Charity given out of duty, without expectation of return, at the proper time and place, and to a worthy person, is considered to be in the mode of goodness. But charity performed with the expectation of some return, or with a desire for fruitive results, or in a grudging mood, is said to be charity in the mode of passion. And charity performed at an impure place, at an improper time, to unworthy persons, or without proper attention and respect, is said to be in the mode of ignorance.
Austerity. Then we'll go on.
Austerity, performed with transcendental faith by men not expecting material benefits, but engaged only for the sake of the Supreme, is called austerity in goodness. Penance performed out of pride and for the sake of gaining respect, honor, and worship is said to be in the mode of passion. It is neither stable nor permanent. Penance performed out of foolishness, with self-torture, or to destroy or injure others, is said to be in the mode of ignorance.
So the more details on this modes of nature topic. Now we'll get back to chapter 14.
Firewood is a transformation of earth, but smoke is better than raw wood. And fire is still better, for by fire we can derive the benefit of superior knowledge. Srimad Bhagavatam explains that similarly, passion is better than ignorance, but goodness is best, because by goodness one can come to realize the absolute truth.
These are just references where the modes of nature are explained in other parts of the scripture. There's another one that's really nice. This is from Uddhava Gita. Krishna's describing to Uddhava what makes up the elements that make up the particular mode of nature you're influenced by and how to change it. Because we're influenced by something and it can be changed.
Krishna explains to Uddhava how to change the mode one is situated in. The predominant mode influencing you is determined by the different scriptures you study, eating habits, drinking choices, your association, your environment, the times of the day you do things, meditation in different ways, the mantras you chant, the sanskaras performed, and birth. By constant practice and cultivation, one can situate oneself steadily in the mode of goodness.
The birth is only one of 10. Your birth is not the only determining factor of the mode of nature that you're influenced by. These are elements that, if carefully taken up, can bring one to a higher mode of nature, mode of goodness, and eventually beyond the modes of nature.
Although goodness is best, it is still binding, one becomes conditioned to feel that he is advanced in knowledge and better than others. Due to a sense of pride and material happiness, repeatedly one may become entangled in birth and death. Repeatedly one may become a philosopher, scientist, or poet with no chance of liberation. Therefore, one must transcend all the three modes.
So this is the concluding section of the chapter. How does one become transcendental?
This divine energy of mind, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome. But those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it.
So that's the principle described earlier.
Spirit soul, bewildered by the influence of false ego, thinks himself the doer of activities that are in actuality carried out by the three modes of material nature. When one properly sees that in all activities no other performer is at work than these modes of nature, and he knows the Supreme Lord, who is transcendental to all these modes, he attains my spiritual nature. When the embodied being is able to transcend these three modes associated with the material body, he can become free from birth, death, old age, and their distresses, and can enjoy nectar even in this life. Arjuna inquired, "O my dear Lord, by which symptoms is one known who is transcendental to these three modes? What is his behavior? And how does he transcend the modes of nature?"
So the concluding question is number 3 at the bottom, but before he gets there, he wants to know the symptoms, like, what's the characteristics of one in transcendence, the behavior of one in transcendence, and how do you get there?
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "He who does not hate illumination, attachment, and delusion when they are present, or long for them when they disappear, who is unwavering and undisturbed through all these reactions of the material qualities, remaining neutral and transcendental, knowing that the modes alone are active, who is situated in the self and regards alike happiness and distress, who looks upon a lump of earth, a stone, and a piece of gold with an equal eye, is equal toward the desirable and the undesirable, who is steady, situated equally well in praise and blame, honor and dishonor, who treats alike both friend and enemy, and who has renounced all material activities. Such a person is said to have transcended the modes of nature. One who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. And I am the basis of the impersonal Brahman, which is immortal, imperishable, and eternal, and is the constitutional position of ultimate happiness."
That's the end of the chapter. So that last section is very important. It's the characteristics and the behavior of someone who is beyond the modes of nature.
One who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances.
I don't know how to stop it. So the activity of devotional service carries one beyond the modes of nature, and then this final just click on the slide and it stops. It didn't stop. Oh, up there, the pause. Okay. We should travel together. Brahman is the Pratishta of so many other things, and Krishna is the Pratishta of Brahman. It's a really important message. Really important message. This word Pratishta, just like when we have deity installation, that's what it's called, Pratishta. It's installing the deity. The Pratishta means the basis and support or the rest of something. So like, I'm seated in a chair, and the chair is on top of the rug, and the rug is on top of the floor, and the floor is on top of some beams underneath the floor, and the beams underneath the floor are resting upon the foundation is resting on the earth, and the earth is resting on Anantashesha, and everything's resting on the Supreme Lord. He's the Pratishta of everything. There's, subset Pratishtas, and then there's the ultimate one. Krishna is the ultimate one. So whatever is resting in Brahman, Krishna is the Pratishta of Brahman. He's the basis and support of everything. And Krishna, is the constitutional position of ultimate happiness. Nice to know, isn't it? So if we want happiness, we go to Krishna. And in service with Krishna, that ultimate happiness becomes something that we can also experience through the relationship, which connects with the previous message of how to transcend the modes of nature through the medium of devotional service to Krishna. And there's nothing more. Because he's the Pratishta of Brahman. And he is the position of ultimate happiness. So it's a very important chapter. Of course, the way that Jai Radhe put this together, there's references from other parts of Bhagavad Gita and other parts of Srimad Bhagavatam and so forth. So it's a nice picture on the topic. What are the modes of nature? How we're influenced by them? What the results of being influenced by them? And how to transcend them. The behavior, quality, and the method of transcending. And get to the position of ultimate happiness, our relationship with Krishna. So if you don't go back to Godhead in this lifetime, maybe you'll take birth in a devotee family. And if you do, hopefully you'll be someplace where they have Gita camps, and then you can learn this in Gita camp. And get another chance. So any discussion? Yes.
I'm a little confused about the three modes of material nature and karma.
Well, they're connected. They're not, but they're. Go ahead. Ask your question.
I was. I don't know how to phrase it, but my question or the way I was thinking was,
if you do good deeds, you go upward, and this says if you're in the mode of goodness, you go upward. If you do sinful activities, you go downward, and if you're engaged in the mode of ignorance, you go downward. So which is it? Is that your question?
No, my question was like the three modes influence a living entity.
Yes.
And they fight for supremacy. And how is it that certain people are influenced more by goodness?
Because of free will choices, they associate more with mode of goodness.
So it is not just the modes of nature at play, but the two-way interaction.
Of course. We're pushed, but we can say yes or no.
How are we pushed?
By the modes of nature.
Unless we react, we are not pushed.
Oh yes, you're pushed. You're pushed.
Could you explain?
Sure.
The way
Do you get tired at night? Whether, supposing you don't choose to get tired at night. Do you get tired at night? You're pushed. You get hungry? We're pushed. And then you can choose, I'm going to eat this much, or this much. You're going to choose to eat these foods, those foods, the other foods. There may be some influence, but you may make a choice that says no. And, for whatever the reason, but, there's free will operating, although we're being pushed. That's, that this power of discrimination, that's a factor of intelligence, but intelligence is also influenced by the modes of nature. Our discrimination capacity is influenced by the modes of nature. So we're choosing which mode of nature so that we have greater capacity or lesser capacity, depending upon, it's both guna and karma. Chaturvarna maya shrishtam guna karma vibhagasha. Both factors are at play. They're not totally disconnected. They are connected, but they're not the same force. Karma is the reaction to past action, and guna is, by association with modes of nature, I have an inclination this way. More like inside out than outside in. But I'm impelled by the modes of nature. That's, your question is exactly the third chapter question of Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna wants to know why. We make a decision to do such and such, and we find ourselves doing something other than such and such. Why is that? I don't want to get angry, but I sometimes get angry. Why do I get angry? Modes of nature. They're impelling us. The bigger picture is that everything is being conducted by the modes of nature. Living entities being carried on the machine of the material nature, conducted by the modes. We're thinking otherwise, but that's the picture that Krishna gives. Everything is being carried out by the modes of nature, by material nature, which is influenced by those modes.
Thank you.
Yes, right behind you.
Maharaj, when we change from other modes to goodness, what actually happens within us?
What actually happens?
Yeah, meaning we change inside out, but the external things remain same. So is it the way I perceive things?
No.
Or
Not only, yes, it's how you perceive things, but it's also the influences that are acting upon you.
okay.
Supposing a mode of goodness person goes into your office and they see people quarreling. Now, that mode of goodness person that walks into the office where people are quarreling is going to respond to the quarreling situation different than a person who likes to quarrel.
So is that an output, Maharaj, or is the way we perceive things?
Both. It's both. I answered. It's so how you're going to perceive and behave is one thing. Now, if you're a mode of goodness person, you're most likely going to be attracted to situations that are mode of goodness like, or by your influence they become more mode of goodness. Just by your presence. Prabhupada coming to America. Pretty heavy duty modes of nature, but so he didn't become influenced by them. He, by his association, transformed persons from their lower modes to better modes.
Okay.
Cleanliness, and other aspects of that. Just mode of goodness, aside from transcendence. Just mode of goodness.
Okay. Sometimes I have this feeling, Maharaj, like for the same situation, I behave differently at one time, but for the same reactions, I behave differently during the other time. For example, if it is a payday and my child breaks something, I know I have bank account, I can buy. But if the same thing happens after 20 days, I get angry. For example,
I got it.
So, why is that change in my own behavior for the same situation? How does it change?
Well, why the change has to do with identification with the circumstance. And in that strong identification with the circumstance, we're not recognizing who's the maintainer in either circumstance. So because of forgetfulness, we think of ourselves as the doer of activities which, specific to this message, which are in actuality being carried out by the modes of nature. So just, be patient till the next paycheck. Or, budget yourself so that you don't have to have that anxiety. Then that's the regulation aspect of the mode of goodness, as opposed to I'm the doer here I'm doing. There's a verse in Bhagavad Gita that says that specifically. One who is regulated in their activities of eating, sleeping, work, and recreation can be peaceful and prosecute the process of yoga peacefully. So that regulation is a feature of goodness. And irregulation is a feature of something else. Yes?
Guru Maharaj, do we have to move from one mode to the other mode in sequence? Let's say I'm in ignorance. Do I have to move up to passion and then goodness and then go beyond?
Well, usually, but not necessarily. I mean, it's something like taking wet wood. You can throw the wet wood right into the fire. It's not going to ignite. It's going to make a lot of, smoke as it's getting dried out. But then it can ignite once it's dry. So generally, it's not like I'm in the mode of ignorance, I should aspire for passion. I'm in the mode of ignorance, and I should aspire for being connected to Krishna. And then, instead of being indolent and lazy and morose and depressed, I may become a little more active and a little more attached to the fruits of my activity, and I'm getting encouraged because I'm getting some fruits and discouraged when they don't come, and the modes become moved in that way, but continue to engage in proper activity of devotional service, and one becomes more detached and attached to the Supreme. That's chapter 15. Yes?
Hare Krishna, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
When during my sadhana, when it's going good, I feel that I'm okay. I'm like, when I'm feeling happy about it, and all these modes start acting on me, and
you don't feel so good anymore.
I don't feel so good. Then I'll pray for the mercy of all Vaishnavas and Prabhupada and all to help me get back to my sadhana.
Yeah.
But sometimes without putting so much effort, I get help. Like I am able to do it. I'm able to do my sadhana and everything. But sometimes instead of putting a lot of effort, praying out for the mercy to help me out with these modes, it won't and I don't see anything happening. So my question is, sometimes without my effort, I'm able to do it, but sometimes
I think I've understood. Is there some correlation between our effort and Krishna's mercy coming into our life? If so, is it dependent upon my calling out for it?
My thing is three modes are acting all the time, but mercy is there all the time.
Yes.
But how is it? Sometimes I'm able to do it without any much effort, and sometimes I'm not.
Yeah, okay, I think I got that's so. Your mother? No. Sometimes your child may call, "Mommy!" and you come running. And sometimes mommy just, comes checking on their child and picks the child up and how are things going. And they didn't even call. You just came. What we want to come to the stage of is feeling connected is there. Krishna's kindness is there in circumstances. So sometimes you just get Krishna's mercy and His kindness. And sometimes there's a transcendental feature to the dynamic of relationship with Krishna. And one of the nice things to understand is Krishna can deal with us however He likes, and not extend Himself when we're asking. And and it's perfectly okay, because what's essential is our sense of being connected with Him. Whether it's happening, the reciprocation is happening according to our expectation or not, or our volition or not. Relationship isn't reduced. I'm still struggling with my sadhana. Let me just say one additional thing before this question. Hold on a sec. Not so long ago, Badahari came and visited here, yes? I know he visited Chicago. He visited Naperville as well? Yes. Yes. So, just a little anecdotal experience with Badahari. I've shared this a number of times, but we were together in Gitanagari for a japa retreat. And we were both staying together, building Badahari. How did it go? To the 64 round day. And I was surprised. He said, it was like a desert. Now, I couldn't even imagine, even to this day I can't. So anyway, Badahari is just such a lover of the holy name. And I couldn't figure it out, like how'd that happen. So then he said, and it was almost up to like 60 rounds, only the last 4 rounds that were really nice. And then pause, and he said, and sometimes it's like that with the chanting of the holy name. It doesn't change our relationship with Krishna, because Krishna does like that. Sometimes you're going through a desert. Really dry. That was, he said, really dry. But he stayed with it because that's his other japa retreat. This is in Ojai, California. It was really fantastic. Prabhupada disciples and older devotees. And one of Prabhupada's disciples that attended shared what her experience for months. That was like really, whatever, I forget the word she used, like excited or pumped up or, really looking forward to this. And so when the 64 round day, as soon as I started chanting, my mind started flooding with all the remembrances of all the bad things I did to other people. And I felt really bad. And it wouldn't stop. It just kept coming and kept coming. To leave. I had to, leave where the company of devotees, and I was literally just sobbing and be, free from this sadness and sorrow. And then all of a sudden, I felt just getting lifted and lifted and lifted, and it was what I had expected, but I had to go through all this other stuff before I got to it, and let go and just be with Krishna. Krishna, you can do with me what you like. Then it was just this most amazing experience of all my years of chanting japa. Purification. I'm sure an enormous amount of humility and much more careful about interacting with people in ways that become hurtful, unintentionally, but it happens. And some regret, just like this mode of goodness is when some improper conduct takes place, there's some regret. So Krishna was cleansing her of that sorrow for the wrongdoings to others. Then don't worry. Just try to stay in your relationship with Krishna. When you're doing your sadhana as a means to connect, he's extending himself just through calling his name, whatever you're feeling or not feeling. Stay in that relationship with Krishna with full faith, that relationship with him regardless. Like the loving mother that may go to their child when the child isn't even thinking of mother, they're busy with whatever they're doing, and there's mother. Showing affection to the child. It's part of the relationship. Now, your question? Yes.
Good evening, Guruji. Why most of the people chooses passion and becoming ignorant? They know that the good.
Why most of the people choose passion and then they get into ignorance, and they know that goodness is where we should be, and that's why we get good results.
That's a good question.
But they're getting the answers only that they have their own karma.
Yeah, somebody has a lust problem, or somebody has an anger problem, or somebody has something in those lower modes of those two. They have I got accustomed to working with. So many examples. A criminal, he knows he'll get punished. He goes and steals. He gets caught. He gets punished. He gets released after the punishment. Then he goes and does it again. He could learn. Don't steal. But he goes and steals because that residual rebellious spirit, that's the mode of passion. We want to enjoy and leads to ignorance, to suffering and frustration. It's a rerun. Now one would think, smarter, more clever. We want to be Purusha, the enjoyer of Prakriti. We want to be the enjoyer of material nature. That's what brings us here. And that's what keeps us here. And then the modes are just, there for entertainment's sake. Varieties. It starts with that one. Mode of goodness is exception. Find one. It's unreasonable to go on suffering. But we do it anyways. Or commonly it goes on. Because that Rajogun, wanting to be the enjoyer of Prakriti. Goodness is just a stepping stone to really stepping back from it, which is Krishna's happiness should be sought. And then the same senses can be engaged in practically the same activity as a whole other experience. Eating, it's a whole other experience. Same activity. Something? Anybody else? Yes?
Got a bit confused.
No.
The extension of the. I thought in order to achieve the love of God, they have to be minimally situated on the mode of.
Have to be which?
They have to be situated minimally on the mode of goodness. That's what I thought. But just now I heard you mentioning that one need not to be transcend from one mode, lower modes to the higher mode. So
I understand when I express myself properly. One or the other. So on the other side of the wall, but you're not in transcendence, and you you go through goodness. Do I have to first go to the quality of passion? That's what I understood the question to be in any case. And it makes a lot of smoke because the moisture in the wood is being driven from the fire, or from the wood. Going to goodness precedes transcendence. Okay, enough of that. I'm ready for the next. Well, I'm going to have to catch a flight, and then you can all stay and take a meal or whatever is going to happen here. Been nice spending some days until we meet again. Srila Prabhupada.